Hey, folks. All right, so I think we'll give it till about five after, and we can start. There's no items on the agenda right now, so if folks have items they would like to chat about, please add them to the agenda. I will make sure to drop the docs link in here for everybody. All right, we are at five after, so let's get this thing going, and maybe we'll actually have a pretty short day today. So, all right, cool. You all are at the WebAssembly working group, which is under tag runtime in the CNCF. We abide by the CNCF code of conduct, which generally means let's be nice to each other, raise your hands, you will be recognized. Please try not to talk over other folks. Um, and yeah, so let's keep decorum and a kind, inclusive meeting. Okay, so if you haven't, please throw your names on the attendance list if you get a chance. If you have agenda items, as I said a moment ago, please add your items and we will chat about them. Let's see. Anybody have any PSAs or anything they need to bring up? I will take the silence as no and continue. So our agenda. I had an item to bring up. I wanted to discuss and see if folks had strong feelings or thoughts generally on Buildpack support for WebAssembly. Actually, really closer to WebAssembly components. and OCI artifacts. So uh, this conversation came up when discussing with Terrence Lee from Heroku about uh, you know, possibly how do we make it easy for folks to build WebAssembly components. And we started discussing how Heroku approached building for a long time, and many others in the community. Build packs. So the problem is that if you're not in Rust, many languages have a pre-step, and then a build, and then a post packaging step, and then actually publish. And uh, when we are thinking about developer tooling around this, either you have a command line interface, or tooling in each language that does this, or you could extract that kind of process into some other structure. And we just happen to have a structure like that, a flow for stuff like that is, and it's called Buildpacks. So we could readily identify a WebAssembly component project. We could then generate out any of the bindings that are needed in the language. We could then build the product of the language, and then eventually at the end, form a component with the WIT as well as the actual WebAssembly module that we get out of the process. And finally, perhaps add, the image extension to Buildpacks to allow it to understand how to not just produce OCI images, but in fact OCI artifacts, so that we could produce component artifacts. This seemed like a one possible path. I think there's many paths here, and I'm curious if folks have thought about this, and if they have, what are their thoughts on it? Oh, one point of order. We did not elect a note taker. Anybody interested in taking notes today? James, you are so kind. Thank you so much. Um, Now, without further digression, anybody have any thoughts on?
I missed the first part of it because that's when I came into the meeting, so I'm missing crucial context. The idea of having uh like build pack stuff for components seems smart to me, to be perfectly honest. So like I have to look into it some more to like give you a full opinion. But yeah, the general idea seems smart to me. Like, hey, people know what build packs are. It's a nice way to wrap some of the stuff that they, I mean, especially right now, while there's still some rough edges. Things are way better than they used to be, but like there's still some rough edges. So if that can be abstracted away behind some of the build pack tooling, I think that's a pretty smart idea. The hard thing will just be making sure we can um iterate on it. The one concern I see, just being in this ecosystem, is there's still so few of us, and the more we take on, the more we have to kind of keep moving as things iterate. And so that would be like if this were a debate and I were taking the opposing view, that would be the point I would press on, is because we like who's going to work on that? We're like you mentioned, we met with some of the Heroku people, so they'd probably be involved somewhat, but like it's probably not a priority yet for Heroku as a business outside of. And if someone from Heroku watches this later and like, you're wrong, come tell us, please. But like, it might not be it might not be like in their business strategy, so it's just more of an R&D type of thing, and those can be tenuous at best. So that would be the one concern. Like we're already trying to move a whole bunch of other things forward, and so we would need some, but like I would feel like to do this successfully, we would need a net new contributor essentially. It doesn't have to be someone literally new who we've never met before, though it can be that too. So once again, if you're hearing this, please come join us. We have cookies. And so we need someone who can be their thing that they're doing, because otherwise, like David and I were having this conversation trying to submit to KubeCon. It was like, well, and we're like, hey, like we got two talks, and it's like, well, like I do my Bytecode Alliance stuff, and I do my CNCF stuff, and I do my Wasm Cloud stuff, and like And like David's like, I have the hyperlight stuff and I have this stuff. It's just like, so like adding one more to that feels a little bit scary to me, just so we can keep things moving. So a little bit long-winded, but I think like idea I love. I would want to make sure we had the right amount of people there to support it, um, to make it successful.
Thank you, Taylor. And with a great beard comes great power, I believe. Um, yeah, there is that worry of dilution, um, and not having enough to cover the space we already have, and we're already quite thin. Um, have you thought about any alternatives? Like I know Wash does, you have a Wash tool, and Wash is targeted for Weather Cloud, and it handles some of the building publish and all of uh, the dev experience, right? So do you, I'm sure you've thought about across different languages how that feels. Um, what are, do you, I guess, from a Wasm perspective, do you want to try to have an experience in each language?
So here's the approach that I know that we've taken as a project, and for a long time, it's why Wash Build even ever existed, and now Wash Dev is the newest experience for it. The point of that whole tool is that it's just a wrapper around the open source tools to make that experience easier. And I think what we're going to see is we're going to need that. It's going to be one of those kind of like handoffs where if we graph like the need for it and how many people want to use it, it'll go up, and then the language tooling and everything will catch up to a point where it'll just kind of like pick up from that, and then you don't need that anymore. I think the real thing is in, the developer tools. Like that's why we created like the Wash Dev part of it, because components are introspectable. Um, and so you're able to just generate what you need, for running them. So I think there's a need for that. But for the build tool, like right now, it is just wrapping around it. And for what it's worth, Wash Build does work for any component you want it to. Um, it because it's just wrapping those tools. It's not like specific for Wasm Cloud in that sense. So there's a place there, I think. But it does, you like, we do have to add like first class language support for anything. There's escape patches to add a build command, which does all the other stuff for you. But like it's not, you have to add the support for each of those. And so like we're just gonna have to play it by ear, like as a community, like what that will look like, um, until the language support gets caught up all the way. I mean, because even in like the languages that have good support, like C sharp, thanks James, and Rust and all those things, those languages, like even those languages are still not like perfect. They're not real like there's still kind of like a side. It's the redheaded stepchild problem kind of thing right now, and I think that'll go away, but that's where we're at. So that's kind of the approach I've taken with all the building and the tools around that is like I think it should be in the language for the most part. Um, but there's some obvious need for everything. We had a long discussion about this at the Plumber Summit about like the build step versus the like composing step versus the I have to go fetch those notes again because Kate shared them when she took the notes. So
Anyone have any other thoughts, opinions on this? Right. Cool. Uh, let's see. Yes,
I
sir.
did have one thought just that popped in right as we were closing there. With in response to the idea of like we need a maintainer to do this, this is one of those things where I think we leverage the CNCF framework to do this. So um, I don't know exactly what tag runtime does, but generally there's like highlights of what projects need or what groups need. I think if we pass this up in our next tag runtime update, we can say like, hey, we're looking for someone like we think this might be a good idea. We're looking for someone to spike it out and own it. Um, is anyone interested, or like whether that's they're interested personally or their company's interested, and would sponsor their time, to do something like build packs. Um, and I think that might be a good way to do it.
Yeah, I was thinking either SIG running time or SIG apps. App development. Probably two two possibilities there. I was gonna. I'm digging through the spec right now just to see what would need to change so that I could put together at least some sort of proposal, writing that up about, okay, here are the things that can be added, and here's how the output needs to change. So uh, like there's only OCI images as opposed to artifact output. So how would you change the specification, or how would you add addendum to the specification to allow for that? Um, so I was going to do a little groundwork there, and I like your idea to bring that up with the other groups, just see if somebody else is passionate about it after a little bit of groundwork. At least give them some direction, like, hey, here's this totally ambiguous task. Good luck. uh,
Yes, James.
Is that spec changed to like the build pack like spec? It
uh,
or
yes,
is that
indeed. So the Buildpack spec, there's platform, distribution, image extension. There's a handful of subspecs there. Um, and the image extension one, it would probably be one that would need updating. I don't think you actually have to update any of the rest of it, as detection and all the rest of that is actually the same process. It's just more the output type that would probably need some addendum to it.
Um, Thinking about leveraging Linux Foundation for getting more contributors. Maybe something like LFX mentorship program would be a point where we can say this is a dedicated task. Maybe somebody can jump on it, get some mentoring, and look into it.
Yeah, I like that idea, Sven. What I would want to do if we go down that route and are going to invest our time is rank our priorities, because I would think like we can all mention probably at least two or three things that we would probably consider more important that we'd want help with over a build pack solution. Um, just because there's so much going on. So like I would say like I think that's a really good idea, and I can't remember when those open up again, but we should probably try to see if us as a group can be involved. Because I know that individually, I don't necessarily have a lot of time to do it just because I'm at a startup. But with a group, like let's say it was you, Sven, and me, and like David, mentoring somebody, I think between the three of us, we'd have enough time to help that person with whatever they were doing. So,
Ideas. Um, anything additional on this topic?
We are trying to engage with the Heroku folks on the packaging SIG in the BA and having active conversations with those guys. So hopefully we get them more involved.
Would you feel like characterizing that conversation and kind of the ideas that were passed around there? I think it would be interesting for others to hear that.
Well, it was some interesting conversations at WasmCon. I don't think they're they started there, right? So it was more of talking through what the different options were and the learned experiences from working in other package managers. Um, and I really don't want to paraphrase other people's words too much, but there is interest from those guys on getting more involved, and I think it'll happen. Also, Terrence actually lives in Austin. He's come to some of our meetups, and I almost had him for dinner the other night. So hopefully, I can engage him a little bit more. So.
Awesome. Yeah, he seems like a really cool person. Yeah, cool. Looking forward to hear how that progresses. Um, Thanks, Calvin. Let's see. Okay. We have another agenda item, the WasmCon videos. I'm not sure who put this in here. Anybody, whoever did, please speak up.
That was just that was me. I just put it on as just a heads up that there's the playlist for all the WasmCon videos that happened 2 weeks ago. So go check them out. There's some really good talks there.
Okay, here comes the obligatory. Anybody have any favorites? Anybody have any must-see TV from WasmCon?
I mean, I was very busy at the booth, so my only favorites are ones I was either in or helping out with. So entirely self-serving. But I honestly, James, I loved the talk that James and I gave. If you really want some, what I loved so much about it is the topic was fun. Everyone here already knows in depth about it, the whole OCI spec. Like the people here are the people who helped write that. So you're not going to learn anything from that, but just seeing but everyone else, if you are like, I don't know what that is, you will learn a lot from that. James and I had a fun time, and we approach the way we're doing things with Wasm is very different and shows off a whole breadth of so it's just cool to see it in action and why it's so like, because we're talking about two things that even 3 or 4 years ago would have been considered entirely opposite things that were using entirely different technology stacks. So, like that was just really, really fun to give. And I also like greatly enjoyed the talk that I gave with Roman. Um, that one goes from the highest of the high to the lowest of the low in terms of detail. So if that's your kind of jazz, like that's the thing you want to see. But I had a really like both of those talks. I had a really, really fun time giving. Um, More fun than most of the time when I give talks. So
Joe
there.
did a good talk too on Go.
Yeah, I'd heard good things, but was outside. So I know that Joe gave that. There were a bunch for those interested in like the is Wasm real question. There were plenty of Wasm users who were on stage there. So like people who are starting to roll it out into staging and production. So if that's your jam, look through the list as well. That was fun to see.
Not a recommendation, but I would say the top of my to watch list would be next the WASI web GPU thing. It's an, I would say, totally perfect fit because in the browser platform it's working every day, and web GPU is an API that could in the Kubernetes ecosystem solve a lot of problems.
I totally agree. That was a great talk. I was impressed to see how well it rendered, and it was very well done. Sean and Mendy do not disappoint. Uh, for folks who are not there, one of the things that I took away that I really hope we can replicate in future WasmCons is the proximity to KubeCon, but also the fact that the first day that WasmCon was on the Contributor Summit day. Now, I don't appreciate that greatly because I want to go to both. But I have to say that the number of people who were there already in Salt Lake and didn't have a place to go, and so they came and went to WasmCon, and there were so many new faces there, so many people that really didn't have a ton of exposure, and were asking, the intro questions that folks new to the community would ask, and it was really fantastic to get so many people there because the second day was much less because there was so many other activities going on. But the first day was really great to be able to, talk with folks and help them to at least start their path down WebAssembly. And it was, I thought that was really fun. And I hope we can replicate that same thing going forward. Um, if we can, I think it'll help the community grow. Taylor, you have your
Yeah, this is sorry, it's going back just a slight bit. If we ever want to hear more about the web GPU stuff, I'm good friends with Sean and know Mendy pretty well, so we can always invite him to come in. That seems to be of interest, especially because then immediately, because AI, people will ask about like how I can use it for AI. And honestly, you know what? That'd be great. Knowing what people can do with each of those things, even if it's only theoretical, would just be good to have. Um, it also, if you sprinkle some AI on it, it increases visibility. It's like golden sprinkles on things. So, um, we can bring them in if we want to. Just let me know and we can do a reach out. There's a couple. I'll push this to I'll put this on another item in a second. So yeah, anyway, just saying we can do that.
Um, After WasmCon is before WasmCon, so is there something planned for EU or is it because okay, because I haven't seen it yet in the co-located conferences, but I haven't checked lately. Um, so was just curious because I will be on Wasm.io and yeah, it's always a nice bridge to KubeCon.
Yeah, my knowledge of it so far is obviously Wasm.io, like you mentioned, which might as well say it now because we're there. The Wasm.io CFP closes on the 22nd. So just keep that in mind if you're going to be over there in the EU to submit to that. Then the other thing is I have heard, but there's nothing confirmed that we might have a like Cloud Native Wasm Day, but it'll be a 1 day thing, maybe a half-day thing, because most of the sponsors and things will go to Wasm.io and won't want to sponsor the two events. And so generally, if there's not a sponsor, it's a half-day event. So it might happen, it might not, but it's looking like there might be one. So just keep your eyes peeled to see if that actually happens. But right now, there's not currently one scheduled outside of Wasm.io.
Taylor, when do you know when we'll have more clarity on that Wasm Day? Or
Let me check with my sources. Um, and I'll figure it out. Yeah, I'm going to be talking to a lot of people from the CNCF. I'm a track co-chair this year for EU, so got stuff to do there.
I've understood that, is, trying to, encourage Wasm.io to and not take away from some of the, you know, some of the folks that would like to speak there, and have them come over to, KubeCon, since, they've done such a nice job with Wasm.io in the past. All right. Any KubeCon talks, any WasmCon talks? Seeing the go and seeing. All right, so just a quick promotion for Joe and Randy's talk on Golang and WebAssembly. You will get to see in there Wasm time running Was0 running a component or running a WASM module. I forget exactly how it worked, but WAS0 compiled to WebAssembly, which is then run inside of WASM time, which is then running its own module within there. So it was Inception for Golang. So just anybody that's watching, quick promotion. Anybody else? All right. I'm sure there are more than is coming to mind right now. There were so many great talks, and everybody that was up there talking. Thank you so very much. You all are fabulous, and you're what make the community go. So thank you. And if we miss you, my deepest, most sincere apologies. Okay, we have another item, people to invite to meetings next year. Taylor.
Yes. So I think we've been doing a decent job with some of these things, but also the CNCF is in the middle of like the tag reboot, and they're trying to like trim down on things that aren't doing stuff anymore. And I want them to like some of this stuff is slow rolling. Like I have to be like, no, like what WASI Cloud's a thing. It takes a little while. It's a standard, like, and I have to explain this up. But one of the other things too is we make sure we try to drive the learning around this so we can provide recommendations or at least like the recorded videos of what's going on. And I can already think of two things, but I'm opening up to the two things I want to do is obviously what we just mentioned. I think it'd be good to bring in Sean and Mendy because they can talk to just it's an interesting topic because the thing that the criteria that I understand based on our charter and everything is a like theme that is of interest to the wider CNCF community if it's not a CNCF project or the projects that are within the CNCF that are doing WebAssembly stuff. And so the web GPU thing seems definitely of interest and be good to have maybe a presentation there just to see where the progress on the interface is and like the stuff that they're doing with that interface so people can see what's possible and kind of use that as a way to drive other people using it. And then the second one I had for sure was trying to get the Wasm-wg folks in because I know they've done a bunch of other changes. And the thing there is time zone. So we might have to do a different time zone for one of the meetings so that we can bring them in. Because Wasm-wg, like, because they're not here, they don't get to talk about as much of the stuff that they're doing where some of the other projects are represented here. And I want to make sure they can come in and say, like, hey, like, look at all the stuff that's going on. And so, like I can reach out to Miley as well, Miley and probably uh Michael, and just see if they want to do it. So those are two, but are there other like reports or updates we want from things in particular? Especially if they're like new or we haven't heard in a while. That's kind of what I was looking at. Any other ideas out there?
Sounds good, but Wasm-wg community meeting is on Tuesdays, the same time slot we have actually, and I think maybe we don't even need another time, so could be a good fit.
Yeah, we could always just go over to that meeting instead. I think could be a solution. Um, or maybe we have him come over to ours so that it's in the Wasm Working Group recordings and all that.
We could doubly brand. Like one meeting for both. In 2025, we're going to have preview 3. So we should probably have somebody in from that space. And I don't know, Luke, Yash, whoever would be interested in chatting about preview 3 and when it's released, be able to, or just upon like right before it's released or something, like, hey, here's the big things that are coming. Joel, good choice. Yeah. Cool.
I think we should front load that, David, to be honest, because it might not come till like March-ish timeframe, but like the thing uh just watching how things are going. But the sooner we get that there, like we can make sure we have any feedback or things and just start to prep the community for it. So I think just a presentation of what's going on would be really good.
What do folks want to see? Like, is there something, different or on the edge that you want to see? I'll throw it out there. What about the Zed folks?
Like the Zed editor.
Yeah, so they did their extension work in components.
Yeah, I remember that now. I had forgotten
Yeah.
that when they first released. I remember seeing that, and it was just way too early for me to play with it. But like, I was like, "Oh, good, somebody gets it." Yes, I think that'd be a good one. I don't know
It's
anybody
beautiful.
there.
I'll see if I can find a connection over there.
I mean, I don't expect everyone to have all their thoughts gathered right now for it, but maybe something we can follow up on like first thing in the new year. Um, David, do we want to assign people to this one, just names, so that we like in the action items for stuff for who's going to go talk to these people and try to track them down?
But let's see, what do we have?
I have the notes right here. I can start it if you want. I can volunteer to get Sean and Mindy. Um, that's pretty easy for me. Um,
Awesome.
uh, Calvin, I know you talked to a lot of the folks with in the Bike Code Alliance space with Preview 3 thing, like the who are involved in that. Is that something you could go track down?
Yeah, I mean, we're getting into the holidays here
No,
pretty.
no, that's why we're starting to reach out
Yeah.
now. It's not do it now. It's like, hey,
Yeah,
in the first quarter of
yeah, yeah, yeah.
2025, would you be available to do a thing in the Wasm Working Group? Like
Yeah,
that's what I'm
sure.
going to be asking.
Yeah, sure. And I guess it's worth also adding a little comment too. I'm gonna be looking at that from the JCO side probably. And uh, I'm hoping Victor stays involved on that and we get more of his time. He's starting to look at that, and I did some walkthroughs with him on the prerequisite work of enabling async, um, essentially async but host bindings um, for preview 2, and then wiring that up for preview 3 for the JavaScript host side. But yeah, I can take that on. I don't know how we want to do scheduling wise for organizing that, but I can reach out to people.
I mean, I think it's perfectly fine to organize in public, personally. Does anyone disagree? Just in like, um, in the work group Wasm channel, like, hey, I talked to so and so. These are the times they had available, and then we can make sure we coordinate on the times. Um, oh, that's not a bad idea, David. Um, Starling Monkey, just to because I like, I know the basic idea of why it exists and what it's doing, but I really haven't seen any demos. Not that they don't exist, just like, yeah. And I think we asked Guy on that. Um Guy has just like done so much work in the JavaScript space, like with this. Not that Till hasn't. That's not my point. I'm just like Jill, like Guy wouldn't like like I think he'd be honored to have the invite. Is what I'm saying. So I think it'd be good to maybe invite Guy. And not that like it can be Guy and Till, but like I think it'd just be good. Um, I can grab Wasm-wg as well, David, for the. I think I'll do that. So I'll grab the Wasm-wg folks.
That's starting to get close to languages. Do you do we want to think about other languages too? Like, do we want to see if Randy wants to come in, or Joe, or talking about the advancement in languages in Go? And then do we want to maybe do somebody from JetBrains and Kotlin?
I think the idea of having the state of the languages for all of them is good. And I think those are two good ones to start with because Java and Go. Um, I think that having that language discussion, just so people know, and I think our goal as a group is to use that as a way to invite people to like, because like Go would be an easy one. We just need to make sure they're prepped for it too. Like that's your forewarning, Joe. For the like so that when we come in and present, they can be like, hey, if you want to get involved in WebAssembly and you're a big gopher, like this is your time to come get involved and to help out with it. And same thing with a lot of the languages.
I think it'd be really useful to hear roadmaps from them, like, hey, we expect to see these things happening in 2025 or something along those lines. Any interest in the editor space? I know we were talking about Zed. Do we want to see if there's VS Code plans or anything like that?
I mean, send out the reach out internally is what I'd say, David. See if there's anyone in there who's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this cool thing. Because if someone's like really gung ho about it and they're like, oh man, I've been pushing to do components with it, and it's like, perfect, come talk to us. That would be my thinking. So yeah, I mean, I would move David that I think we're good with this list to start. And if anyone comes up with one, like please drop it in the working group channel or ping somebody. I don't really care how, just like let people know. But yeah, I think it'd be good to just start doing that. And then I really love the languages one because I think we can tie that up in a report we put in our deliverables. Like it's the 2025 WebAssembly language support Wasm Working Group guidance thing. Like just like it would be just the report. It wouldn't even be. It'd probably be 2 pages max. Um, and like it gives us a chance to have that synthesis round where like we hear all the stuff, we take notes, and then us in the working group write the document, and then we go tell the people who came and presented, did we represent you correctly? And then have that like little like make it because then that increases the learning and then we can send it out. So I think that would be the output of that one.
It might be nice to actually target that as a CNCF blog.
I agree. I think we would get the report in really quick into the deliverables and then say, hey, reach out to the blog and put it on there. I think that's a really good idea. So I think that's what we shoot for with the goal there. And then the other thing we might want to do later, not the first part of the month, just throwing the idea out there to seed it, is a state of all the projects that are accepted, like are actually in the CNCF, the ones that are applied, and then like just the status report. And get like, and that means having those projects come in and present what they're doing. And like for each like one of those projects, say like what is their current like thing. So if they're applying, like what are the things they're trying to do by getting into the CNCF, like what things do they need help with, those kind of things we answer, and then all the way into like um, all the other projects that are already in there, and like what are the challenges they're facing. I think that's another like I think that's maybe Q2, but I think that that's a another thing to do, just so we're generating those reports and giving. I think we've been the thing we haven't been doing as well, and this is a group effort. I'm not there's no blame here. We haven't been doing our advisory role as well, and that's part of the point of the working group is to be that like essentially an advisory group to the CNCF about WASM things. So I think if we do that, that'll be really good as an output.
So that's interesting. And I agree with that statement. The question is who's the target? Is it Chris? Is it the tag runtime chairs? Is like what is the audience for that advisory?
Officially, it's tag runtime. Um, I think personally, I think it should also be targeted at CNCF developers, which I mean, those are a mostly overlapped Venn diagram most of the time. But I think we should try to target that intersection of and then that Venn diagram of all the CNCF developers and tag runtime, like where that's at, because it's just also like you mentioned at WasmCon, it was really nice to see a bunch of fresh faces. Kind of surprising too. All of us were like, "Hey, well, it's going to be people who know about Wasm," so we kind of like nixed the "What's Wasm" thing from the beginning of all of our talks, and then we're like, "Oh no!" And so the thing that I learned is a lot of people still have a lot of misconceptions about what Wasm is. Like even just plain Wasm, not even components, Wasm. And so like we need them to understand Wasm and components. And so I think the target is tag runtime because then like officially it rolls up, right? The chain of command is we report to tag runtime and tag runtime reports to the TOC that does the output there. Um, and so target is tag runtime, and I think we also try in all of our writing to address it to the developers. Like when we write these posts, we say, you might be wondering why all these languages have to add Wasm support. Well, let's explain a little bit about Wasm, and do that in the intro. Like we wouldn't necessarily need that for tag runtime, but I think we would do it for the developers who would see it.
Awesome. Let's see, anything else on the status project for projects using Wasm? Sorry, not to call you out, James. I really appreciate what you're doing. uh, is there anything else we would like to cover on that topic? All right, let's move into the announcements and news section. Does anybody have any announcements or news they would like to bring up to the group?
Oh, pick me, pick me. So I haven't actually had this is old news at this point, but I never actually got to announce it in here. And I'm excited to because like most of the time I'm always trying to guide this from not just from my project level, but in this time it overlaps. So I'm gonna take the moment. Wasm Cloud made it to incubating status as of right before KubeCon. So that's really good. Obviously, I'm proud of it. Been with the project for a while, but also that's really good for us as a working group and as the Wasm thing because it's the first Wasm project in the CNCF to move to incubating, and so it's starting to show the TOC and other people that like, hey, no, Wasm's real. Like we're having a whole bunch of stuff that's coming all together. We mentioned all the talks at WasmCon and how successful that was that are coming into this. So I like very exciting to have that there and to get that out. So just wanted to announce that because we hadn't had the chance to talk about it here, even though it's kind of been already announced. But just wanted to share that. So that was my
That's
only news item, though,
fantastic.
as far as I know.
Congratulations. Well done. A lot of hard work and it's well earned. So awesome. Anyone else? I mean, honestly, I think that's like way too little like celebration for that achievement.
Well, like I said, it was already announced. Everybody here already knew, but like we never actually officially announced it here. And I was like, well, better officially announce it. Um, so wasn't
It should be like
expecting much of a celebration. Just yeah, I mean, like the one lousy party popper, yay, kind of like ta-da.
Who wants to go next after after that resounding response? Meh.
I added a second party popper for you.
Yeah, I don't think any of us can top that kind of excitement, Brandon. Awesome. Yeah, I don't really have much in ways of announcement or news. Almost all of the news was announced at KubeCon and WasmCon. So um, I guess I'll wait until the next one. We should have news soon.
Foreboding and shading of.
Yeah, well, shortly, if anybody didn't see the announcement for Hyperlight, sorry, self-promotion. Um, the This is kind of interesting from a really tiny hypervisor protected functions runtime. So if you're in that kind of world, many of us are, it could be an interesting project for you. And shortly we will open source some WebAssembly support for it. And we look forward to probably discussing it in this forum as well. So if anybody has any questions or would like to understand more about it, feel free to hit me up. CNCF Slack or Blue Sky or some other, whatever your source of social interaction is. Okay. News and announcements going once. Twice. And it's sold. Okay. Balloons market. Okay. I move that we close the meeting. We adjourn. Do I have a second? Here, Roger's rules abide. Okay, good. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this edition of the Wasm Working Group in Tag Runtime under the CNCF. I'm David Justice, and thank you so much, James, for taking notes. And thank you all for attending and adding your insights. Always appreciated. I'll make sure this video gets out quickly. Oh, you're always too kind. All right, everybody have a fantastic week. Oh, hey, next meeting. Next meeting is going to be on, let's see.
24th, right? Canceled, probably.
Yeah, I'm not going to be here. So 24th, let's expect not to be here, and then we'll follow up in the new year. Okay, so this is our last chance to see each other probably in this setting this year. So I just want to say thank you. I truly appreciate working with all of you. And Thanksgiving has passed, but I was very thankful for each of the relationships I built here in this room and all the work that we do together. You all are absolutely fantastic. So, and you people out there too. Happy winter holidays. Cheers.